This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi and continuing coverage of the case against Bryan Kohberger.
There's a line in almost every true crime story that chills you. Sometimes it's a confession. Sometimes it's a 911 call. But in the Bryan Kohberger case, it might just be a screen name. PaPa Rogers. An anonymous Reddit and Facebook account that popped up in the earliest days after the Idaho murders, dissecting the crime scene, predicting the evidence, throwing off investigators and taunting the families in real time. And now as we sit here with Kohberger having confessed to the killings, a question still hangs in the air like a bad smell. Was that him the entire time? This episode, we're going to take a sharp left turn into the psychological minefield of that online behavior, not just the disturbing true crime fandom, but the digital ghosts of killers who want to be seen, just not known. From Kohberger's Reddit surveys to a formal prose of PaPa Rogers, we explore how a murderer might leave digital fingerprints long before DNA shows up in a lab. And then there's the visual snow, a strange neurological condition Kohberger reportedly suffered from. Seeing the world through static like an old TV set that never quite tuned in. He wrote about it in disturbing terms, about feeling detached, about treating people like meat suits. Yeah. About being unable to connect with his own father, not because he didn't want to, but because his mind couldn't. Is that an excuse? No, but is it a clue? Yeah. My guest, retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, is back with me again, and we're pulling no punches. We're going to talk about the pain of invisible disorders, the way darkness grows in online echo chambers, and the forensic frustration of almost knowing the truth. Conversation is going to get into the ethics of studying monsters, who should do it, why it matters, and whether chasing clicks or selling books off a killer's psychology is ever justifiable. And yes, we get into the Peacock documentary, the redacted evidence, and what's still hiding in sealed court documents that the public hasn't seen yet. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on YouTube. That's where we're collecting your comments, and that's where we have our conversation. So please do join us there. Be sure to press subscribe wherever it is you're listening to the podcast as well, whether it be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, whatever it is, or on YouTube, so you don't miss any of our coverage. So I teed up this next piece. We're going to ask Jennifer to go back into the digital trenches, asking a question that's haunted a whole lot on the internet. If Bryan Kohberger was PaPa Rogers, what does that tell us about who he really wanted to be and who he thought was watching? Let's talk about the some of the online presence. We talked about his early on, the writings, the visual snow, things of that nature, which add that to a mind when you start trying to understand visual snow and what someone in their life is going through if they're suffering with this. I just saw the doc last night that you were in, and Howard Bloom is in, the one on Peacock, the Idaho murders. And I thought they did a really interesting piece on visual snow, where just the hell that must be if it kind of comes on at a different point in life or it flares up and gets worse. I can't imagine trying to go through life and not be irritated and not be on edge with everything. If this is how you're always seeing things, then you have the issues with the ears ringing that can come into play. And then, hey, go be a productive member of society. He got pretty far academically in life for having those sort of ailments.
Yeah, he did. And it's not clear how long he suffered from it, but it was certainly when he was younger that he describes it. And, Luigi Mangione also suffered from visual snow. And look at what he ended up doing. Yeah. Right. So I'm just wondering, that really, to me, needs to be, studied more. And I think people who aren't our age or older that have seen the television when it snowed out. They showed it on that documentary, which I thought was good.
Yeah.
But most people these
They're like,
days,
"What?"
young people, they have no idea what we're talking about. Remember, at least for me, I would stand there sometimes when we were watching and have to put my hand on the TV and my arm out
Yeah.
to be a better antenna. Like if it was something I really wanted to see
Yeah.
and the snow was going in. But yeah, imagine living that kind of life. And I keep wondering how many other people that have turned to murder had visual snow. Did they even really understand it? I think sometimes if you live your life a certain way and every day you wake up and you're in snow, that becomes so normalized, probably.
It probably would. It probably would. But at the same point, I would imagine that would be debilitating to a certain extent. And I mean, gosh, I just couldn't imagine. I mean, it would be a form of torture. It would be like being locked in a cell and you're being played Britney Spears over and over, whatever it may be. But it's coming from your mind, and that's, I take the Britney Spears, I think, over the visual snow. Let's go back to another piece of the online, I guess, lore, if we could say. And I'm really curious to get your opinion now that we are sitting here and we do not know the answer to this. I don't know if we will know the answer to this. PaPa Rogers, what do you think? At the end of the day here, I mean, we got the image. We know he's the one who did it. The image of PaPa Roger was the one that looks a lot like Kohberger. Obviously, there's the Rogers reference to the incel. As we sit here now, and now that we know Kohberger admitted to this, do you think he was the one online taunting the families and taunting everyone for a little while?
Well, I mean, if you look back, particularly at my Twitter feed, I think I probably did hundreds. If you look at all of them, responses and so on, I did so much research. I spent way too much time at that because, you don't get paid for doing these online research projects, but you just kind of get fascinated by it. And I was fascinated by it. I always said the reason that to me it was like a wow moment just for me was studying these individuals and realizing the Dennis Raiders, right? Writing in, as you know, to Cake TV and to the different newspapers, the Wichita Eagle and Beacon. That was their format to be able to rub in the face of victims, to terrorize the society, and to taunt police. That's what they used, right? Typewriters, letters, all the different Zodiac killer, many others that use that.
A floppy disk they didn't know was going to be traced back to him.
To his church, right?
His church.
With BTK.
Yeah, exactly.
But my point was with PaPa Roger, wow, he's doing it real time. Like he is real time doing it on his keyboard. The minute he gets a thought, he's taunting police. He's saying he knows. And there were so many things, the sheath was left behind. He absolutely wrote the script. If you followed him, oh, by the way, don't look at the car. That's the wrong direction. No need to look over here. The picture that looked almost exactly like Bryan Kohberger before Bryan Kohberger was ever named. I mean, I could go on and on about why. Let's just put it this way. There was probable cause to believe it was Bryan Kohberger. Then beyond that, his writing style, that was something, though, that gave me pause. Different people have writing styles. So for me, when I'm doing Twitter as an example on social media, I'm not a punctuator because I'm just getting it out there and moving on. It's, it's not formal writing. It's a wonderful way to just be able to kind of be yourself and throw stuff on paper, right? And PaPa Roger was more formal, but there was some going back and forth. And what really bothered me was there were some posts that were put out after he was incarcerated. And there was a lot of online by the sleuths saying it was the exact same IP address. And that gave me a lot of pause. So, Tony, if you're asking me, is there strong probable cause that it's Bryan Kohberger? I say 1,000%. If you're asking me what the Dateline believed and thought from their sources, Yes.
Yeah.
They said Papa Roger was him. Has Dateline been 1,000% right in all their source reporting? Yep, they sure have. Even to the point that they're, whoever leaked the information, there's a full-on investigation now to figure out who that was.
Are we going to
Paid
find
for
out?
by the state.
Do you think we will find out the answer to this question ultimately if it was him?
Yeah, I think we will. I think we're going to find out so many answers because I think somebody's going to talk to him. I wish he would talk to the behavioral science unit agents at the FBI. That's who really BAU, behavioral analysis unit. Actually, they call it now.
Yep.
That's who he needs to talk to.
Yeah.
To me, that when you started off the show, you said, do we need to study this, Jen? What do you think? And I pointed out that I'm not sure it does really any good at the end of the day. But I do think it needs to be studied, but by the right people.
Sure.
It just galls me to think of people going in there, in a sense, and interviewing him for money when I really look at it.
Yeah.
And remember, there's no Son of Sam laws there in Idaho. So, what parameters is this judge going to put on him that if money is made, that it goes to the victims? And I don't even know if the victims want this blood money.
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, I don't think I would. I think I would give it to something in the name of my child.
Yeah.
But it's kind of gross to think, we're going to go to a nice restaurant tonight, kids. And, it's commingled with blood money. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely hear you. And that's going to be a fascinating thing as this gets studied more and more. And there is going to be a lot of evidence coming out. It's interesting. Right after I get done talking with you, I'm talking with Howard Bloom and Robin Drake, the former head of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program with the FBI. So I'm all Kohberger this morning on this with a lot of great folks. The evidence that we're going to see coming out, number one, in the hearing the other day, the change of plea hearing, we saw Bill Thompson stand up and kind of go down basically what we already knew, what had already come out about what they had against Kohberger. We didn't really hear a whole lot that was new. Is there a reason for that? Is there going to be anything more? Are we going to find out more pieces of evidence here that were being held onto that were going to be coming to court, or did he pretty much lay out the cards?
Well, there's a couple of things here. First of all, there were a couple of nuggets that for me, I didn't hear Bill Thompson say before. One of the things that I thought was interesting is he kind of alluded to that he said it was quiet, but something about they weren't all first-degree murder. I think when he was talking particularly about Xana and Ethan, I don't know if you caught that. It was really subtle. He goes, and we're willing to admit that, that this one might not have been first degree, but nevertheless, I mean, he pled to first degree.
Yeah.
The question is really, like in Massachusetts, first degree murder. Not Massachusetts, in several states, first degree murder in Virginia is the one I'm thinking of, right the minute you decide. So you can be convicted of first degree murder, Tony, because 1 minute you planned and executed the murder of somebody. So it's a little bit different in different states.
Sure.
I guess what my point is in all of that, he pled to first degree murder. So I didn't look it up in Idaho, but at what point of computing that you were going to be committing this murder can you be convicted of first degree murder? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was just something that I found a little bit odd because I think all of us understand that Xana and Ethan, as an example, weren't his targets, but we also understand that Ethan was sound asleep, which they've pointed out over and over again, and was, in a sense, executed. That's first degree murder.
Yes.
But as far as, did you see them discuss the dissemination order and how the judge said that the dissemination order is going to be over? And then the prosecution said, whoa, wait, there's a lot coming out. Let's not do anything with that until after sentencing. And the defense agreed on it. So I think everything that's redacted and everything that was ordered to be not, in the papers, that is going to continue to not be disseminated. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
They remember the defense put up a motion saying, I believe 4 individuals were responsible for the killings, not Bryan Kohberger. Well, that has been censored and redacted out. So even when that goes public someday, I don't think we're going to see that. Can you imagine the hell of those 4 people? I mean, a sleuth gets I shouldn't call them sleuths because sleuths are the good ones. But some of these social media people get a hold of a thought and they run with it and they make the lives hell for those individuals, for their own purposes, I believe. But anyway, that stuff is going to stay redacted out, Tony. And I just pray that it's not so singular that people will be able to figure it out.
Sure.
But I think we're going to see a lot of this. It sounded to me like he's going to revoke the non-dissemination order. And I thought that meant it would include the dissemination under FOIA of these files.
So now we're left with a ghost in the machine, a username, a writing style, a trail of digital breadcrumbs that just might lead back to a killer's ego. Maybe it was Kohberger, maybe it wasn't. But if it was, and Jennifer certainly thinks there's probable cause to believe it was, then this case becomes something much darker than we ever realized. Not just about the act of killing, but about the performance of it. The live commentary, the obsession with narrative control. A killer who didn't just want to get away with murder, he wanted you to know how clever he was. That's a different level of being a psychopath. That, if it all turns out to be true, makes Kohberger less of a mystery and more of a modern-day zodiac, except now the messages are coming through keyboards, not envelopes. And the stage isn't a small-town newspaper. It's your timeline. But maybe even more disturbing than the whole Papa Rogers thing was our detour into the visual snow. Because if Kohberger lived his life feeling detached, disconnected, and constantly overstimulated by something he couldn't fix, I mean, think about it for a second. Then the psychological damage may have started years before the knife ever left its sheath. Let's be clear, this does not excuse him, not even close. What it does is paint a more accurate and more disturbing portrait. A young man desperate for meaning, spinning in a world that felt unreal to him, looking for connection, but only finding it in message boards, in Reddit threads, and maybe finally in infamy. And here's the thing that also stuck to me. Kohberger got plenty far. A PhD candidate, teaching assistant, no criminal record, and still, we may have never known any of this until 4 people ended up dead in Moscow, Idaho. I thought Jennifer also asked a powerful question. Should we even be studying him? The answer, I think, is yes, but only for the right reasons. Not to mythologize him, that will unfortunately happen naturally. Not to turn his face into clickbait or line someone's pockets with blood money, but to learn what we can before the next one figures out how to disappear online while plotting something horrific. Because the reality is Kohberger might have been hiding in plain sight, but a part of him was always reaching for attention. And he might have been posting about his crimes while the rest of us were still lighting candles at the vigil. We just didn't know it. And now we're left asking, what else didn't we see in time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section on YouTube. If you're not there yet, just search Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. You'll find us. You can do that same search wherever you download podcasts to find us there. And press subscribe so you don't miss any of our coverage on this case or the many that we follow for you right here at the Hidden Killers podcast from True Crime Today. My name's Tony Bruschi. We will talk again real soon.
Craving non-stop true crime updates? Press subscribe now. and get the latest cases, analysis, and expert commentary delivered straight to your feed, only from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.